that is the first slide as well. Just reminding people that we do record these sessions, and the reason for that is so anybody who misses a session can catch up on the recording. And also, if you want to look back on some of the content, some of the examples, just to refresh, you can go back and look at those sessions. I'll pop in there a little content warning. We do look at some road crash scenes to try to work out what went wrong, what we can do to prevent those in the future, or prevent the severity of those in the future. So just a warning if that's something that may affect you, just be aware that we've got nothing graphic, but just a few in there. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands we're running this training on. Pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we do have quite a variety, don't we, Emma? We've got a good spread across Australia. Any internationals?
Not today. Not for this session. Yeah, not in this session.
Okay. But good. Welcome everybody from your varied lands. And this is Emma. Emma, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how participants can engage in the content.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi there and welcome again, everyone. I'm Emma and I am a training coordinator here at Safe System Solutions. So I can certainly help you with all the background and admin side of things. So my contact details are there on the screen. You can certainly give me a call or shoot me an email if you are having trouble accessing any of the content in our learning management system or even logging into our learning management system. Now, I will just say one thing. If you have completed a course with us in the last year, say perhaps in 2021, and you used our Moodle learning management system, we've changed platforms. So if you've got the link saved from last year, you might have done Safe System Assessment or Cycling Infrastructure or something, and you've saved the link and you go in to the link that you'd saved and you can't see this road safety audit course, it's because we've actually changed platforms. So we have provided, in an email I sent in the last couple of days, it did have the new link. But if you can't see the current course, just send me an email and I'll resend you the link to the new platform. We'll show you all the content in Moodle later this afternoon as well. So that's just, if you have any issues, certainly shoot me an email. As well as that, to participate in the program at the moment, we are using Zoom webinar rather than Zoom meetings, so we can't see or hear you. So the best way to engage in the content and get involved is to use the chat function. And just when you look at the chat function, when you're typing in, you might see the to field, and that often defaults to hosts and panelists, and that would mean that just Ken and I can see your comments or questions. So if you'd like to change that to everybody, everyone will certainly be able to see that. So Ken will shoot questions off, or if you've got any questions throughout the program, jot them in the chat and we can certainly go through them as we proceed through the programs and the sessions. Some organizations don't have access to the chat function, or they just don't, it doesn't work entirely. So you can, if that's the case, you can use the Q&A option. I'll try and look at that as much as possible and respond to that as well. I think that might be it for now from me, Ken.
Yeah, that's a good summary there. We will at some points ask for volunteers and they can raise their hand and we'll be able to unmute them. And that's how you can talk. We can't turn your video on, or you can't turn your video on, but we'll get to that. But yeah, pop stuff in the chat and we'll go along from there. And yes, Emma's your contact if you have any admin logistics or anybody at Safe System Solutions, and we'll pass it on. But you mentioned Moodle there. This is Moodle, Learning Management System. And if you don't have access to Moodle, you need to get access to Moodle. You cannot successfully pass this course without access to Moodle. So make sure you're able to get in there. Now, Emma's going to be behind the scenes monitoring the chat and the Q&As and feeding through questions to me as we go. So do pop those questions in and don't wait for me to pause along through the content and say, does anybody have any questions? Because I will probably have moved on by the time you type it in and hit submit. So pop them in as you think of them. I also give out some prizes along the way. You'll see Emma's there in the prize pit. And yes, so I'll ask questions. First one to get them right or match what I'm looking for will win a prize. You can also win prizes if you log in early. Emma likes to ask trivia questions while we in the few minutes before official kickoff. So some prizes given away there and some different things we give away prizes for. And how do we get you those prizes? Well, when you successfully complete the course, you'll get an electronic copy of your certificate, but we also pop in the post a hard copy of the certificate with any prizes you won along the way. So Emma will keep track of that behind the scenes. And hopefully you got your little welcome pack in the mail. Don't worry if you didn't quite get it yet. Nothing vital in there to do this first module, but there's a few little snacks and goodies to help you on your journey. My name's Ken Beer. For those I don't know, it was good to see some familiar names and in the attendees, and thank you to those who have said hello via Moodle already. That's always a nice way to introduce yourself in these virtual environments. But I'm the principal engineer at Safe System Solutions. Before that was in VicRoads and coordinating road safety auditing for Victoria. Yeah, I do lots of road safety audits, safe system assessments, and a variety of other road safety engineering tasks. And my colleague Jamie Robinson, our technical lead at Safe System Solutions, will be coming in for Module 3 to talk a little bit about those detailed design road safety audits. And I popped my QR code to my LinkedIn here. Oh, I haven't got my pen going. Hold on a second. How's that working? Yes, there it is. So you can connect with you on LinkedIn because it's a nice way to continue the road safety conversation. I certainly put out bits and pieces of road safety information, road safety engineering, road safety auditing information online. And I always like to see what others are up to, different projects, learnings, and insights. So it's a nice way if you're on that platform. And please connect with me. I've popped it down here for the first few slides, so hopefully that'll work for you. Another little thing we have going on is our friend Wally the Wombat there. And Wally the Wombat warning sign appears a random number of times through each module. And your task is to count how many times Wally the Wombat warning sign appears in the module. So all the slides for the module. And that will be one of the quiz questions you have after the session. How many times did Wally appear? So you've got to keep your eyes on the slides as they go through, just to make sure you're keenly looking for Wally. And Wally makes up part of the competency requirements or the requirements to successfully complete this course. And we'll require you to come to 4 out of the 5 live webinars. We'd love you at all 5, but one you can view as a catch-up, viewing the recording. If you know, for some reason you can't make 2 of them, absolutely unavoidable, get in contact with Emma and have a chat about some options there. Satisfactory completion of all the tasks. So we've got quizzes, exercises, and we've got a sort of mock audit. Well, it's an audit. You'll get out to a site and those sort of things. We'll take you through all of that. And then our competency benchmark is 80%, which is quite high. We do set a high benchmark in terms of understanding the process of road safety auditing, and that's for all quizzes and assignments. So you will be marked, and you've got to get over that 80%. You do have 3 attempts at everything, and you have one-on-one coaching available if you're really struggling. So certainly, you know, my aim is to ensure that everybody can get over that 80% pass mark because they have the competency that we need to see. And so I will happily work with you until you get up to that level of competency. So please reach out to me at any point. You've got my contact details in these slides or through Emma and we can organize some specific one-on-one as we go. Okay, so has anybody, up to this point, I just checked that everybody's okay with sort of the general way the course is going to run. At the end of the session, Emma's going to walk you through Moodle and show you where you can do your quiz and how you upload your assignment. We are going to give you a short assignment at the end of this session, nothing too onerous. But if not, I'm going to jump into some content. But pop stuff into the chat as we go if you've got any questions, and I will be asking you to do a few things fairly shortly, but I do want to start with a bit of content. So you're here for the road safety audit course, and I am going to start off with a slide that has lots of words. I apologize. I don't like too many words on a slide, but at the end of this module in particular, we're going to cover off the definition of a road safety audit, and we're going to talk about how road safety audits fit into the life cycle of a project. We're going to ensure that we're all clear on the differentiation between a road safety audit and a black spot investigation. We're going to look into risk and risk rating. We're going to talk about the safe system and from that kinetic energy thresholds. And we're going to categorize, learn to categorize road safety audit findings into their safe system alignment. This course overall, actually, I'll explain what we're trying to achieve with the course after this slide. This slide, though, is saying that what we're doing for this course is following the Austroads guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is Road Safety Audit, and that's really where the process has been laid down. Now, I was project manager and special technical advisor on this document, which was just released 2022. And so there are some of the older ones that you might recognize. So really, if we gave you all this document and you read all 158 pages in detail and were comfortable with all of that, that's kind of what you're going to get out of this course, but we're going to hopefully do it with more examples and more interaction. But overall for this whole course, all of our 5 modules and the exercises you're going to do, we're really looking into the process of road safety auditing. It's about the process, because we can't possibly teach you absolutely every issue that will come up there out of a road safety audit, because it's just infinite number of possibilities. But we want you to understand that process and have some basic skills within road safety auditing. We want to ensure that you're undertaking road safety audits through a safe system lens. That'll make a lot of sense to some of you already, but for those it doesn't make too much sense, I'll explain that later. I'm going to give you examples of common issues. Okay, there are just things in my many years of road safety auditing that just come up over and over and over again. And so I'll be sharing some of those. We'll be looking at all road users and ensuring that we're thinking about all of these road users in road safety auditing, and encouraging road safety audit and answering any of your questions. I'll be nice to you. Wally count is 1. That's what you're looking for. So keep an eye out for any of those floating around in slides, and keep a track of how many there are. Okay, this diagram is in the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, Road Safety Audit, and it takes you through sort of the life cycle of a road. And that's everything from the sort of high-level planning of it to operating and maintaining it. But, you do projects, you upgrade it, upgrade roads, you develop that, scope it up, upgrade it, deliver it, and so we have safety injections all along through this life cycle of a road. But road safety audit fits in at these later phases. There are other tools for the network corridor planning and project development. Our road safety audit is once we've got a project, how do we ensure that it is going to deliver us the safety outcomes we want, and it's not going to create any new safety issues? And then you can do that for existing road and think about some of the risks there. But we'll talk a bit about this later. But I just wanted to contextualize that for you with this diagram early on. Okay, the first thing I want to do, and I put up a number of these common misconceptions or important tips on these sort of things. The first one is that standards do not necessarily equal safety. And a road safety audit is not a standards review. Now, the term audit gets misinterpreted in road safety audit. And I suppose that's because that term, conjures up the visions of a financial auditor or somebody arriving with their ticking that meets the standards, and then everything's okay. Well, a road safety audit is not a check against standards. Okay, standards may come into your road safety audit, but they may not. You might find an issue that perfectly meets the standards, and you as a road safety auditor still have a concern, and then you will report that in your road safety audit. Likewise, it may be that you identify something being proposed to be constructed that does not meet the standards, but you believe it is safe. Then you do not need to report that in your road safety audit. Okay, you might decide to make a little note of it, but it is not a check against standards. But standards can be a pretty good starting point for a lot of things. And there's been a lot of thinking into standards, and if things don't meet them, often there are potential safety issues, but sometimes they don't. But standards can come together in an unsafe way. Two things that meet standards that are put in the same area can present a dangerous issue. Sometimes we just don't have standards or guidelines for particular infrastructure, and that may cause an issue. Or there may be inherent risk in the standards under which we operate or the guidelines under which we operate, which as a road safety auditor, you can flag. So let's have a look at an example to try to sort of highlight that. Now, I will give a prize out. I'm going to start giving prizes out. For anybody who can tell me which road this is, that'll be a good. We want to see if anybody's able to pick what road this is from that. It's going to be a hard one for people not from this state. But anyway, you can just type that into the chat. I see a hand has been raised, so that would be, you raise your hand if you want to talk, but we just, if you're answering the question, just type it in there. Caitlin has got it with Eastlink. Well done. There's a little clue. It's very hard. So if you're not from Victoria, but a little clue there on the sign there, the colouring of the sign and a few other things, and maybe the crash. Now, in a tragic crash incident here, and not very long after Eastlink opened, and Eastlink's a fairly new motorway in Melbourne. And we see there that a large vehicle breached the barrier system and struck the overhead gantry. The driver was killed. And so the question I've got, there's one overarching question, is how on this billion-dollar road with the best, these amazing designers from these multinational design firms, could, very recently after opening, could something like this happen? And anyway, we look into that and we say, well, designed quite well, but okay, and it had barriers there. What type of barrier is that? Well, it's a wire rope safety barrier, and it's got a test level associated with it. Now, what I mean by a test level is that barrier systems need to be approved. And in order to be approved, you need to do a crash test. And you've probably seen videos of crash tests. And those tests will then give there is a test level. And the test level is associated with a size, a particular vehicle, a size of vehicle, a weight of vehicle, a speed and an angle that crash has to happen. It has to contain the vehicle and a few other parameters, but it has to contain that vehicle. So I see Mal's put in there TL3, test level 3, and he's probably right. It probably is a test level 3, but let's imagine it is a test level 4. And there are some test level 4 wire rope systems with a stiffener plate and a few other things, but don't get worried on the detail. If it was a test level 4 barrier system, a hypothetical, this was a test level 4, what weight of vehicle do you think the test that contained it was? And that's what speed. So the speed was 100 kilometers an hour, 25-degree angle hit, and under MASH, what would the weight of the vehicle in that test be? Have a guess. You don't lose any marks or any points if you get it wrong, but are we talking about a 1-ton vehicle? A 50-ton vehicle, somewhere in between that. Any guesses are good. Okay, seeing lots of guesses there. So we've got 30, 42, 2.27 from Mal, which is very specific, and I know exactly why. Well done. Dan's gone in there. So Mal's 25. Dan is going to get the prize on 10-ton for the test level 4, but I'm also going to give Mal a prize, test level 3, on the 2.27. So 10-ton, and I think Mal's probably right. It's probably a test level 3 barrier, so it's even less than that, which is a 2.2 pickup truck, which is what it's testing. But the point is that this vehicle, fully laden, is going to be way heavier than any of that. Way heavier. And so the reality is that barrier system is never designed and can't be expected to contain a large vehicle like this. So technically this met all the standards and guidelines of the time. But we just can't expect it to cater for this crash situation. And our challenge as auditors is to be able to predict this and suggest the design is altered before this happens. And it is a challenge. But we would be thinking, okay, lots of heavy vehicles and barriers. Okay, the barriers are good, probably not going to contain these large vehicles. What would happen? Okay, and now we've got a gantry, and that's going to be bad. And if that falls over the road, that's going to be even worse. And we start to then say, maybe we should have something a bit stronger in this location. And you've got to try to be able to do this all from lines on a bit of paper or a electronic copy of a design of upgrades to this road. And it's really sort of exciting to try to find issues before they ever build them and weed them out. And hopefully we don't see these sort of scenarios happening, even if they do meet standards. But that's the 10-ton vehicle. That is what those barriers are designed to contain in those crash tests. So there's the crash test. So those larger vehicles, fully laden, would be a huge challenge. So let's have another look at one here. And this one is a new, big, huge subdivision, which is sort of here and goes down for a fair bit that way. And there's a new access road here, and it's getting a new set of traffic signals. I'm going to zoom in on it in a second. There's an existing intersection here, though. Okay. So there's a road duplication happening, a realignment of the road, and you, as an auditor, will be given the design, and you will be looking at that design and trying to say, what crashes could happen when they build this new thing? So you're going to be going and looking at these lines and saying, okay, I see what they're doing here. So this is the new intersection, and there's a crossing point there coming up here, and this new alignment goes through this way. And I'm just popping a common road safety audit issue that I see come up quite a bit. And if we look and you imagine a car in this lane, traveling along 60km/h speed limit. So let's say they're going 63 or 65 maybe. So we're imagining a slightly higher speed scenario. They travel through the intersection because they got a green light there, and they travel happily along there, and then, whoa, I'm in a right turn lane. I was going straight through. And this is what we call a trap lane. And you can have a trap lane as, trap you in a left turn lane or right turn lane. And it's probably one of those terms, it's a term that I just go, whoever named it is a genius, like so well named. And you will have, no doubt, if you drive around the road network, found yourself in a trap lane. And we know that in a trap lane, we're going to have side swipe and rear end risk happening all through here, because people don't want to be trapped there and they will get out of that. Okay. So what we're doing in a road safety audit, though, is trying to look at this and identify that. Oh, okay, they're doing this, but they're actually going to build a trap lane, and highlighting that, flagging it, and hopefully trying to recommend ways to lessen the risk of this. Hopefully eliminate the trap lane through them, creating a dedicated turn lanes. So, you get rid of the trap lane altogether, or trying to look for ways to lessen that risk.
I've actually got a photo of that trap lane, Ken, if you'd like to see it.
You've got a photo of it?
I do.
Okay. Awesome.
Share it. Of the intersection. Yeah.
Well, that's so that's the slip lane off.
That's the slip lane, yeah.
Of the intersection. The trap lanes over the other side down the road. That's an interesting crossing point, though, as a priority crossing, which we're going to talk about in one of our later modules, and how to deal with pedestrians and cyclists on slip lanes. But that's certainly the development straight over the road there. So thanks, Emma. I'm going to share my screen now again. But yes, I'm sure some of the participants might know that one quite well. Trap lanes. Yeah, so Emma's photo was taken sort of. Okay, time for participants to do Emery's still there. Something just happened with my Myrtle. Emma, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Sorry. I feel like sharing my photos ruined everything. You just froze a little bit, but you're back on. So I can see you now.
Right. Let me start again. We're going to do a little exercise. I'm going to show a little crash video, and I want participants to think about what in the road environment, so what infrastructure has influenced the chance of this crash happening. Okay, I'll play it a couple of times. But what about the road design, about the infrastructure that's out there may have influenced the crash? So I'll play the video a couple of times. Hopefully it streams through for you, but we're looking at the back first, and then we go to see the front of the video.
Excuse me, Ken, we can't actually see your sharing screen. We're just seeing you, which is great.
Give me a second. Okay, let's
That's
try
great.
that again. Apologize. Hopefully. All right, bear with me. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is ask again. I'm going to play it again, sorry. And I'm going to ask you to type in to the chat anything in the road environment, so the design of that area, the signs, the layout, the geometrics, whatever it is that you think may have influenced this crash happening. And just type it into the chat as you think of it. And I might give out a prize, I think, for anybody who matches one that I think is quite an interesting one to talk about, whether it's the biggest influence or not. But let's have a look what people come through with. Okay, seeing lots of good stuff coming in. Okay, so let's keep them coming in. I'm just going to sort of read through a few of them, and thanks. It's good that lots of people are putting it out to everybody, so we can see, so others can have a look at what people are saying. But we're seeing people are interested in the vegetation, maybe blocking sight lines, the signage, and there's a bit of multiple signs there blocking one another. I think I've got my. Yes, so good eagle eye there to spot. We've got some signs blocking each other there. You know, is that going to have a huge influence on the intersection? Probably not a huge intersection on its safety, but it's not great. We don't like it. So, you know, you might be pointing that stuff out as a road safety auditor. So that's some good spotting there. So some pointing out of line marking, some more on line of sight. Some people interested in that pole and how it's sort of collapsed and bits and pieces. So Chris is talking about the long straight on the approach, and that's an interesting one. We've got some interest in the speed of approach, where the stop line is, whether there's advanced warning or not. And we've got, quite a bit on the signage, line marking, blocking of others, the lighting not being on, depending on how sort of dark or light it actually is out there. And Bronte's come up with a very interesting one, and that's actually the one that I was going to give a prize if anybody came up with what I term visual deceit. But Emma's going to keep track of prizes. I think I've already given away a couple of prizes, so hopefully you're keeping track of that.
Yeah, certainly.
Good, thanks, Emma. And so this see-through effect, and the light poles continue straight. So this is, to me, a really good example of how a road safety auditor is going to try to think. Now, all of the other things being commented on are good, and auditors should be thinking of that. They're all sort of very, very good. But the next level of sort of thinking as a road safety auditor is to try to get yourself into a driver's subconscious. And that's a really challenging thing. Yes, there are more sort of, it's usually termed the human factors and, sort of human factors thinking and a few other things. But when we have a road that continues straight, like this on the other side, there are these clues, and it's the power poles, for example, are one interestingly impactful thing, that those power poles continue off down into the distance as a straight line. And that provides this very subconscious influence to a driver that their road continues on. And we do see this increasing the overshoot at intersections. So crashes at intersections we categorize as either overshoot crashes or restart crashes. Overshoot crashes are where the driver or the rider has not identified the intersection is there, or have not identified it's their requirement to give priority at that location. A restart is where they're fully aware it's there and that they have to give way or they have to stop, and have made a bad decision as to whether or not to go, or they've stopped and they've picked the wrong gap or whatever it is. So they're restart crashes. And it's often different characteristics of the intersection produce more risk in either restart or overshoot. And this is this visual deceit, and I call it visual deceit as the overarching category, this see-through effect, that the continuation of power lines and the straight alignment through are heavy influences on overshoot crash risk. So that's the kind of thinking that we want to be able to do as road safety auditors. And when you get out onto a site, you're able to see it, it can be easier to sort of pick some of this. We see a lot of see-through effect with where we have multiple sets of traffic signals close together, and people will see the green behind and the red close to them they don't see. Also in Y intersections, which for example, and I'm just going to use a bit of this screen as a whiteboard here. We've got a road that curves around like that. Dodgy center line on there. And you've got a road that joins into it like that, but you've got a run of trees down here. We discovered that a driver coming up here, well, the run of trees, and if they're a little bit asleep, maybe a little bit intoxicated, maybe it's raining a little bit, whatever it is on those thousands of ways that people drive, they might drift a little bit into there and then go, oh no, the road goes around there. But they're spending a bit of time on the wrong side of the road there, and we see some pretty horrific incidents. So the subconscious, what are people maybe perceiving that the road is going to do? And so you're in this really challenging but exciting place as a road safety auditor, where you've got to not only imagine what is going to be built if you're looking at a design, but then you've got to imagine how a road user is going to use it, and then how are they going to stuff up, and why are they going to stuff up, and how can we eliminate that from the design before it's ever built, or if there is something there, how can we rectify that? How can we reduce that risk? But as a road safety auditor, we don't stop at just trying to stop the crashes happening. We look at the severity of the crashes. And it was nice to see that some of you already jumped into looking at the severity of the crash, and you were talking about that pole and what's it doing? What did it break away? Why is it dropping? And what this is, it is a slip-based pole. Okay, I'll explain exactly what that means later. The vehicle hits it, breaches through it, and weirdly that the top of it just falls down. Now, I've not seen one of these or a particular design of one where the top falls off like that. Usually the whole lighting mechanism will go. But the severity of this crash has been significantly reduced by someone's decision to use a frangible pole, a slip-based pole, a pole that breaks away on impact, rather than a solid, rigid pole. And if you have a look at this vehicle that is, so this vehicle here, travel along maybe 60, 65 kilometers an hour, whatever it is, going about their business. And all of a sudden there's this other vehicle in front of them. Then they strike the pole, and we look there as they strike it, and we see there that there's this sort of distance that they've covered after they've broken through the power pole or the lighting pole. Now, anybody who knows sort of the basics of energy, kinetic energy, will understand that the dissipation of energy over time is going to be a good thing for the transfer of that energy into the occupants of the vehicles. So I really think the decision to use a slip-based pole in this particular incident has saved that person's life or prevented a pretty serious injury to them. And it doesn't take a huge amount of distance of energy dissipation to make that happen. So there's an example of some pretty exciting road safety engineering that maybe a road safety auditor in the design of this had some input in, or the designer was thinking in those safety terms anyway. So a slip-based pole, this is sort of a diagram of what a slip-based pole is. So essentially, when struck at the bottom, it shears, it breaks off, and you have some bolts on the side that take the wind load. So you've got the collar that's taking the torque, the wind load of that. And I'll come back to explain what this audit is doing shortly. But as a road safety auditor, you will be given plans like this potentially, and they're new lighting columns and new lights or alterations to an intersection and the like. And you might be looking at, okay, what type of poles are they using? Are they slip-based poles, which you can see there? Some of them are slip-based and others are rigid. And should we be using slip-based poles to try to lessen the severity of any of the crashes that do occur? Now, hypothetically, if we had this location and the design, so you're getting here before the big Victoria Gardens development, they're doing all the upgrades. And if they were to hypothetically on the plan have that as a slip-based pole, what could be some of the issues associated with that? So as an auditor, you look at it and go, okay, they're using a slip-based pole there. That's good. Now pop it into the chat. They're using a slip-based pole. That's good. They're thinking about trying to lessen the severity of the crash for a car that maybe runs off the road there. But let's have a look at what we're seeing there. So Marla has come in with impact tram lines, and Dan's followed that up. Adrian, and everybody's on to the power line. So let's give Marla a prize, and also Samuel as well, for possibly onto pedestrians. Chris has come in with an interesting run of the fact that it's got traffic signals on it as well. I'm keen for a slip-based signal pedestal. There was some proposed trialing of that, which never got off the ground. But yes, you would be considering loss of a signal if it was to be struck. But yeah, as a road safety auditor, what we need to be doing is thinking about what is the risk balance going on here. Okay, if that's struck and it falls into pedestrians, takes out power lines, is that more risk than the risk of a vehicle hitting that? And generally, as a rule of thumb, low speed environments, you do not use slip-based poles because the risk to the occupant of the vehicle is lower and the risks to what is generally more pedestrians in the area and the like is higher. So we don't use slip-based poles in low speed environments. We either use a rigid pole if you've made the decision that that is, the impact to the occupants of vehicles is low enough that rigid poles are okay, or we use another type of pole. And I will give a prize if anybody can tell me what the other type of frangible pole is. This is an example of it. There you can see it. And what it does is it crushes. It doesn't shear away, but it crushes and it sticks within a general envelope of the vehicle. Now, you still wouldn't use this in heavily populated pedestrian environments because it still does come down, but it's just more contained than the slip-based pole, which we use in higher speed environments. So Imala's got, again, energy absorbing. Well done. It's an energy absorbing pole. It's got some weakening at the base and it slips. So it doesn't slip, it just deforms and envelopes the vehicle. And it's called an impact absorbing. So as a road safety auditor, your challenge will be to look at a plan, look at the context, balance up, what are the dangers? Are the pedestrians going to be congregating in these areas? Is it a low speed environment, a high speed environment? And thinking about providing your assessment and recommendations. And I'm just using random examples of things that pop up a little bit. But the two things that are in road safety audits associated with slip-based poles that I would call a common findings are thinking about where they will fall and the choice of a slip-based versus a impact absorbing or a rigid. And they're really done in the design phases. For existing roads, the one I'm look at here is the height of the shearing plane. And they should be a specific height off the ground surface. And you can see our senior road safety auditor here, Max, is having a look at the height using one of our barriers, which we just mark up the heights and everything, the barriers and everything before it's all on there. So we don't need to continually look back to manuals and things like that. But slip-based, you can see there, it's got a little bit of tolerance either side. But if it's too high, a vehicle will snag on that. You don't get the shearing impact. If it's too low, you lose some of the benefit. Actually, far better to be too low than too high. Now, throughout this course, you'll see this little symbol come up a little bit. And in the PDF copies of the slides, which you can get out of Moodle, if you click on those, it takes you to a little bit more information on this topic with one of our Safe Systems snippets. And some of you probably see that if you follow us on LinkedIn, that we put those out quite often. We just take a little topic. Maybe it is slip-based poles, shearing, height, and we'll explain what the heights are and the tolerances and why that's important. And so you can have a look at any of those. Another important thing here to know is that road safety audits are a proactive assessment process. If you have an area with a crash history and you're analysing the crashes and the types of crashes, what happened in those crashes, what type of vehicles, what time of day, and those sort of things, what you're doing is a black spot investigation. That's the reactive road safety mechanism, okay? So in a road safety audit, you do not need to look at crash history. You may want to look at crash history, but you certainly don't, because that is a sort of reactive process. Now, road safety audits can be done at that design stage or pre-opening or for an existing road. Certainly at the design stage on a major new project, the crash history is somewhat irrelevant because the whole scheme is completely getting changed, right? And what you're doing is looking at that design and saying, what's it going to be in the future and what crashes will happen then? Not what are the deficiencies at the moment, because they're about to get built out. If you've got an existing road, the crash history may be a little more relevant to you, but don't get too caught up into black spot investigations, okay? Because we're looking proactively what crashes could happen, not what crashes did happen, but it may help you a little bit. I personally will use crash history somewhat near the end of an audit with my audit team if I think it's going to be maybe give me some more insights, but I'll do most of the auditing with the team and we'll talk about what we think the risks are. And okay, they're building this, so people, you know, are going to go off the road here or that. Oh, the pedestrians, they want to walk from here to here and there's no way for them to do that. They're going to walk across this bit here, not where they're telling them to. And, you know, you're thinking through all of that. And so you note all your risks, and then we might look at the crash history of the team and say, is there anything here that's, you know, flagging some different things we maybe didn't think about? But I don't want to be clouded by that crash history and look at it and say, well, there's been no pedestrian crashes, and so maybe it's not a risky area for pedestrians or something like that. I want to look at that from a fresh set of eyes and say, when it's built like that, is it going to be a risk? But there is no hard and fast rules, and Austroads doesn't say you must use crash history or you must not. It just sort of glosses over that. Now, interestingly, there has been quite a few evaluations of road safety audits across the almost 30 years now that road safety auditing has been done in Australia. And road safety auditing now is quite a worldwide thing. Certainly, it started in the UK about 32 or 33 years ago. Very quickly, Australia and New Zealand adopted road safety auditing, and a few other countries. And certainly Southeast Asia and now most of Africa and Europe are very heavily involved in road safety auditing. And the US, it's fun to talk to people from the US, and they will say, oh, we're doing this new thing called road safety auditing. Have you heard about that? We're like, yes, we have. 30 years, but they're now discovering it and its benefits. And you'll see there that some of the studies are showing a 36-to-1 for the design stage and a 6-to-1 in a benefit cost ratio for existing roads. And I see Marlon has just asked why the difference? Why only 6-to-1 for existing roads? And that is a very good question. So Marlon can have a prize. And the reason for this is when you are given a design to undertake a road safety audit on, and you get your team together and you make recommendations on alterations to the design, it's pretty cheap to change lines on a bit of paper or in CAD, you know, make changes. Now, occasionally, you know, sometimes those changes come with costs and we can't ignore that. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes they actually save a little bit of money, but yeah, sometimes they cost a little bit more, right? But if you have existing infrastructure out there, you know, concrete's been poured, it's all there and everything's in place, and you as an auditor make recommendations, there's big costs always in altering the existing road network. So it's lovely to get in the designs and try and weed these out. And I see Matthew has answered the question as I was answering it. So well done, Matthew. He can have a prize as well. Emma, I think we're going to run out of prizes, but I'm excited. Okay, what is a road safety audit? Now, interestingly, in the Australia's Guide to Road Safety Part 6, Road Safety Audit, which I keep referring to, on page 4, you see a whole page that defines what a road safety audit is. And I am not going to just read a page of text to you, all right? If you want to read the page of text, you can go and read it yourself. In fact, over this course, you will be given almost all of these dot points anyway. I'm going to just pick some specific words out. Road safety audit is a formal examination of a future road project or an existing road or road-related area in which an independent qualified team reports on a project's crash potential and actual safety performance, respectively. Formal. Road safety audits are a formal process, and there is a set process to undertake, and it's got 8 particular steps, and I'm going to take you through those 8 steps next module. But it is not that quick check or, I'm just going to duck out at lunch and do a road safety audit on this site and these sort of things. No, you've got to follow this process, and it is formal. And you'll sign it, and you sign it and put your stamp to it and say, this is a formal examination. So there are designs, are future projects or existing. It is independent, and that is a universally important thing of road safety auditing. You must be independent of the project. You cannot be the designer. You cannot be the project manager, right? You cannot have anything that is going to make you compromised in your frank and fearless advice on safety of that project. It's done by qualified teams. Now, qualified can mean different things in different areas, but generally in Australia, you've completed an approved course, this course, for example, and you are registered on a jurisdiction's register of accredited road safety auditors. So I'm going to talk you through in detail how to get on these registers in our final module. I'm going to point you at the ones you're eligible for fairly immediately, being Victoria, Queensland, and South Australia, and answer any questions you've got on that. Okay, so shortly we will have a little exercise for you to do. A bit of a poll is going to come up in a minute, and I'm going to utilize when that poll comes up as an opportunity for you to have a stretch and fill up your water and the like. So we'll have a 2-minute break coming up shortly. But the safe system is the philosophy under which we operate in road safety at a national level. All states and territories have adopted the safe system approach to road safety, and most local councils across Australia have. And this is how we operate. Some key elements of this safe system approach to road safety that filter very importantly into road safety auditing are this: human bodies are vulnerable, the biomechanics of injury, how much force we can handle before we break, and a bit of the understanding of people are going to make mistakes. So we need to work to minimize the mistakes, but then manage those mistakes through energy management. The key principles of the safe system are that we have an aspiration for zero death or serious injury on the road network. And it's going to take us a while to get there, but we're going to start to make big changes with that aspiration in mind. And so road safety audits and road safety in general is going to become more and more important. We talked about people making mistakes, and we've got to try to manage the energy in that and take some responsibility as designers and engineers and managers of the road system that mistakes are inevitable when you have a system operated by humans. We can minimize them, but they will still occur, and we need to then understand the vulnerability of the human body in different crash types and manage the energy associated. So what I'm going to ask shortly is for Emma to pop up a little quiz, which will pop up on your screen. Now, you are not marked on this quiz. There's one after the session that you'll be marked on. But this one, don't worry, you're not marked on it. In fact, we don't even know who votes for what. But it's just a little consolidation of what we've discussed so far, except for the last question, which you haven't been told, but I want you to have a guess at it. So let's take maybe 3 minutes now, and you can have a stretch, answer the quiz, which Emma, you can pop up on screen now.
Yeah, we've just come up. Mel's just got a question around, is there a minimum project value or financial amount for a road safety audit should be conducted?
Great question, and it's up to jurisdictional's particular policies. So some jurisdictions have policies that set a total estimated cost of infrastructure projects and which phases must be audited. Others don't. Others use different risk metrics. So it's a case-by-case basis. In Module 5, I will talk a little bit more about that policy decision-making, about when audits should be done and what local governments or state road authorities or national road authorities should be doing in that space or are doing. So I will talk a little bit more in Module 5. But let's pop up that poll. There it is. Beautifully done. Okay. Have a go at that. Have a stretch. And let's come back in about 2.5, 3 minutes. Hey. Emma, we better get back to it. I realize I have about 6 hours of content to cover in the next 50 minutes. So let's have a look at it here. Okay. True. Thank you. We're going to share the results. Thank you. Okay, true or false? A road safety audit is another name for check against standards. False. Almost everybody got that one. Somebody tripped over just a little bit there, but no, definitely not a name for a check against standards. True or false? You can audit your own design. Everybody listening on that bit, no, you certainly cannot. You are not independent, and that's so critical to auditing. Which of the following is not considered a formal element of the SAFE system? So SAFE attitudes, I didn't really cover this too well, and I sort of wanted to see, well, I don't want to spend too much time on SAFE system fundamentals because most people have had that already, and I wanted to delve straight into some of the other stuff, but most everybody there on that SAFE attitude, it's not a particular formal element of the SAFE system. We like people to have SAFE attitudes, but we know that there's all sorts of attitudes out there. And which of these is not one of the common principles of the SAFE system? So eliminating mistakes on the road, we know as a bit of an impossibility because it's humans in control of the system and mistakes are inevitable. We're going to try and minimize them, but the idea of eliminating them is not something that is a principle there. And then the Usain Bolt one, which I've asked some of you before, I use it as an analogy quite a lot in different courses and things, but the answer is 44 kilometers an hour when Usain Bolt crossed that finish line. And so the question, I suppose, then becomes, well, why am I asking that in a road safety audit course? And it relates back to the idea of kinetic energy management and the biomechanics of injury. And so the analogy goes along the lines as follows. Let's park a car at the end of Usain Bolt's lane, and he runs along at 44 kilometers per hour and bang, runs into that car. Will he survive? The answer is yes, he will survive because he's built like a truck. But he's, pick us mere mortals up, throw us at a car at 44 kilometers per hour, not as likely to survive. And in fact, we do have some pretty good information about the biomechanics of injury. There's lots and lots of research going on into this and alterations to it. But for passenger vehicles striking pedestrians, we know that the collision speed, not the speed limit, just the speed of collision around 10, 20, 30 kilometers per hour is reasonably survivable. Up around 60, 70, 80 kilometers per hour, it is highly unsurvivable. It's very likely that the member of our community will be killed at a strike at that speed. It goes really bad at about 30 kilometers per hour really quickly. So exponentially kicks up around there. Usain Bolt up a little bit higher in the curve because of his stature, but essentially we evolved to run into solid stuff off the pace of our own legs. And so here's a little demonstration of evolution and how we evolved. And this is what we evolved to withstand. And there you go. He survives, recovers, leads a normal, healthy life, broke some ribs, but went back and won the gold medal the next year and blah, blah, blah. So, but, when we get much bigger forces than that, we just cannot handle it as humans. And we need to start thinking about the severity of crashes and the energy transferred to the human in the different crash types, and understanding that when we make decisions about the road environment. And we have that information for right angle side impact crashes. So bullet vehicle here, bullet vehicle speed, target vehicle here. We call the one that does the damage the bullet vehicle in road safety. And bullet vehicle speed, we see upper, 40, even 50 kilometers an hour. It's usually quite survivable, but up at 80 or 90, highly unsurvivable in a right angle crash like that. And 50 kilometers per hour is our real exponential kick up. Goes really bad really quickly after bullet vehicle speeds above 50. And for head-on crashes, we see it's about that 70 kilometer per hour mark. And that's 70 kilometers per hour for each vehicle operating as a bullet and a target vehicle in one. Again, we've got some snippets on this topic because it's so important in safe system thinking to understand kinetic energy, speeds, angles, masses, vulnerability, and pack all of that into the understanding of severity of crashes on our road network. Now we take generally a 10% line, and that's because things go pretty bad pretty quickly after this, the exponential kick up. So that's sort of the point we're taking. Any questions come in on that, Emma, before I jump on?
Yeah, Samuel's come in with a question. It's asking, how old is this data and what safety standard of the cars is the data based on?
Well, that is a great question because it's European data from probably 12 years ago, I think. So the European fleet is far advanced in safety features than the Australian fleet, so we can probably peg that back. But you'd still even say it's a little bit old in terms of the data. It's fatalities only, so we like to talk serious injuries and fatalities. But what's happening at the moment is there's some really good work happening out of the Centre for Automotive Safety Research at the University of Adelaide, recreating these using the current fleet and adding in serious injuries. The National Road Safety Strategy has some information on some specific ones. In general, I think these are still a reasonable starting point. Okay. Now take, for example, the pedestrian one, and it's a really great diagram in the National Road Safety Strategy where you can basically see curves go sort of like this, and like this, and like this. And these are all different research reports. And you sort of draw one in the middle, and it's about exactly what we've got there because you're getting different research coming out and about. But it's a thing to keep an eye on as we progress. And I've put in some different crash types here, and it's something we're going to work through. I'm going to have to move pretty quickly now to try to cover off some minimum content, give enough time for us to explain the exercise you're going to do. The old model of road safety auditing was, hey, I've identified a risk in a design. I'm going to now quantify how risky is it, how bad is it, and make some recommendations. The new model is identify that risk, assess it, consider safe system tolerances, which is what we were just talking about with that energy, kinetic energy, severity of crash, and then make recommendations, but give them some safe system aligned measures. And I'll explain that a little bit more. And really the easiest way for me to explain it is just examples. And so I'll just take audit reports and I'll just walk you through those bits. So let's have a look here at this example. And we've got a new intersection on a 100 kilometer per hour road. and another 100-kilometre-per-hour road here, and they're intersecting, and it's a new right turn lane, new left turn lane. And what we're interested here in is, or one of the audit findings they talk about is a dynamic visual obstruction crash, which is where a vehicle is in here and there's a vehicle wanting to pull out and the sight lines are being blocked there. And here, let me show you this in real world. So you can see here, you've got a left turn lane, you've got a truck there, and you've got a white car that's sort of just being hidden a little bit there. We go to the next. We go to the next one forward. You can see there the truck there, the white car, and so this car's going to go right as soon as that white car's passed. I'm going to do my right-hand turn, and the white car passes, and being masked the whole time was this silver vehicle just trailing behind the truck. And that's what we call a dynamic visual obstruction. And we see these crashes and Ibrahim's there, right there, and this is a South Australian example. We see high speed, bad crash angle, right angle, the bullet vehicle here going high speed straight into the target vehicle, and we've got some severity of crashes. So, right, somebody's planning to build an intersection, put a left turn lane in here. The auditor has gone, hang on, I've got a dynamic visual obstruction concern now. And you can see immediately as they're writing up their audit finding, a diagram that explains the whole thing. And I love that. I always love it. If you can put a snip of the design, a photo, a diagram, something so they can easily go, I know what they're talking about. They don't have to try and work it out from all your words. But the words in there, I like to break down into a particular formula or a recipe, depending on what you want to call it. And I'm going to show you that now by using these colors. The first part of the recipe of writing up an audit finding is, what is the issue? So for the intersection of blah, 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 the vehicles turning left may create a dynamic visual obstruction for motorists at the hold line looking for through vehicles. Right, okay, that's the issue. The yellow there is the crash. So then you actually specify, this is the crash that could happen. This increases the likelihood of right through side impact crashes involving vehicles turning out of the side road. In blue there then are any factors that increase or decrease the risk of this happening. The volume of vehicles on both roads is low, which reduces the likelihood of crash. However, the proportion of larger vehicles turning left into Epsom Vanuatu Road is high, which increases the chance of dynamic visual obstruction. And then finally, if you want to, you do not have to, or if it's applicable, you can talk about standards and guidelines. You could say, this does not meet Austroad's guide to whatever, or for example, in this case, the design is consistent with current Austroads and VicRoads design guidance. The auditors believe it still presents a safety issue. So there you go. Like, and straight away said, yeah, well done. You met the design standards and guidelines. However, we believe people will still be killed or seriously injured here in the future. Okay, so that is how you write up your finding. Once you've looked at the plans and thought, oh, I'm worried about that, this is how you write it up, and you use this formula. And I'm going to give you a little tip for this course. You want to use that formula when you write up audit findings, because that's how we're going to mark you. Have they clearly told us the issue? Have they described the crash? Have they presented any factors that increase or decrease risk? And kind of for bonus marks, have they references to any standards or guidelines that are being met or not met, or is it irrelevant? Okay, so we need to then, after we've identified that, sort of determine, well, what is the level of risk that we're talking about here? I mean, is this very low risk, negligible, or are we extreme risk here? And how do we make that decision? So risk, as many of you know, like as the international definition of risk, is likelihood times severity, or frequency times consequence, or any combination of, likelihood times consequence, frequency times severity. It is what is the chance bad thing is going to happen, and what's the magnitude of badness? Right? So, what's the risk of recession? Well, what is the chance we go into recession? And then if we do, how bad is it going to be? What is the, risk of road crash? What's the chance the crash is going to happen? And then how bad is it going to be when it does happen? And we need to quantify that, or put, not quantify, but put some specifics to it in our road safety order. And so what you're going to do is say, you imagine this crash. And remember, in that formula or the recipe you did, you've specified what crash you're talking about. So you're going to say, what is the chance that that crash is going to happen? And that's going to take into account, how many vehicles are going through there, and, what's all the configuration of it. And then how bad is it going to be when it does happen? And you can see here, this is straight out of the new part 6, and something we worked a fair bit on was to try and shape this chart up to help you. We see there that we've got the chance, rare, unlikely, possible, likely, almost certain, and we've got some figures on it. Okay, well, it's going to be more than once every 7 years. We're going to call it rare, or it's going to be happening once every quarter, this crash. Then how bad is it going to be? Well, okay, fatal is pretty obvious. I mean, that's going to cause death, but death within 30 days of getting to hospital. Serious injury, admitted to hospital, moderate, first aid, and property damage down the bottom. So you then, imagine the crash happening in the future, in this future design, and you say, well, I'm, thinking it's going to be serious, and it's going to be happening maybe once every 3 years or so, and we get to high. Now, what we are doing here is this safe system crash outcome threshold, and you can see this line has been produced here. That comes into play a little bit later, but you notice that one, that's on the wrong side of the line. Okay, still a high risk if it's here, but it's on the better side of the line. And the FSI in brackets here is fatal and serious injury. It's indicating that this risk is coming about by the concern of death and serious injury, whereas this is coming about the concern of lots of minor injuries. So you put this in there, okay, and you risk rate it. You say, well, I think it's going to be rare. The severity is going to be serious because of the speeds and the angles, and the resulting risk is medium, but it's within that FSI category. And you've got that from here. Rare. So saying, low volume road, you're going to have to get that very specific configuration. We know there's lots of these out there, and it is rare, but they are occurring. But it is certainly going to be serious, and that's FSI there. Then we have to come up with some recommendations. What are they going to change now at this intersection? What are we going to suggest? Now, as an auditor, we have no mandate. We are not, all powerful, and you must do this or you must do that. We're providing advice. We just say to the designer and the project manager of that, we're concerned about this, and we think it presents this risk level. And here are some ideas on what you can do to lessen that risk. But what we do with that is we say, with these ideas we're giving you, these are the ones that we consider primary treatments, and these are the ones we think supporting treatments. Now, these are two specific categories, and any of you who have done the Safe System Assessment course with me will know them very well. And I actually do point you at this document, and it is the Safe System Assessment Framework. Now, that's not what we're going through in this course, but this document has these great examples of what are primary treatments and what are supporting treatments. It just lists a whole lot of them. But primary treatments are your planning, design changes and management changes that virtually eliminate the potential for fatal and serious injury crashes occurring in association with a foreseeable crash type. Okay. Supporting are planning, design, management considerations that improve the overall level of safety, but they're not expected to virtually eliminate fatal or serious injury crashes occurring. And they don't change the ability for a primary treatment to go in the future. Now, importantly here, you've got to think about crash type, not the particular issue you're concerned with. So let me explain that. The crash type we're concerned with here is that crash where the vehicle comes out and is struck by a vehicle going through here. The issue itself is the dynamic visual obstruction. So if we come up with measures that remove the dynamic visual obstruction, that's great, but it's not going to virtually eliminate that crash from happening, because that can still happen. So let's have a look at the measures. Implement measures to reduce the speed and or angle of impact of this location. This could be achieved through a roundabout, and that is a primary treatment, because that will virtually eliminate car-to-car, right-angle crashes of that severity level. If this cannot be achieved, implement measures to improve sight lines at the intersection, such as increasing the offset of the left turn lane or reallocating the hold line, relocating the hold line forward, provided it can be done safely. So trying to open up the sight line. They are both supporting treatments, because they are going to lessen the chance of this crash type happening. They're not going to virtually eliminate it. This is going to be a tricky thing for some of you to get your head around, that slight difference between primary and supporting. But we're going to give you a number of exercises to practice that and get some feedback, and you'll tick along and you'll get there in the end. I just popped this in because, funnily enough, a colleague and I were doing a road safety audit not that long ago, and we identified a dynamic visual obstruction issue, and we pretty much wrote it up the same way as that other one was, but it just happened in this location that we'd also come up with some concerns for cyclists, and thought, it might actually work out quite neatly if the shoulder converted to a cycle lane through there, which then pushed our left turn lane back, which opened the sight lines nicely. And so we just did a little sketch on that and popped it in the audit report, just to really, here's an idea for you to think about. By no means is this us saying, this is what you must do. It's saying, the issue's there, and here's an idea for you, and it's actually going to alleviate a number of the risks that we've identified in our audit. So just trying to help out, really. Little tip is, to be categorized as a primary treatment, it must either address, I should say back to this, that this is all supporting. Doesn't mean it's a bad treatment, it just means it's not a primary treatment, it's a supporting treatment. To be categorized as a primary treatment must either address the consequence of crash or virtually eliminate the possibility. Then in your audit table of findings, you leave these areas blank, because that is where the receiver of the audit report, the commissioner of that audit report, that could be the designer, could be the project manager, could be whoever it is, and it's up to them to then make some decisions. Do they agree with that, or do they not? Are they going to do what you recommend, or are they going to do something else? and it's their call. And I think Marlon's just popped that in as a question. I mean, it's their call. Usually the road authority has the final call on it. They say, okay, I've got the designs come in and the auditor said this and the designer's now saying this, and okay, I've decided that. We're going that way. And then justifies it. What's that? Agree with it? Yes. And that's what we're going to do. I have another example in here. I'm not going to go through this one in as much detail, but I mean, it's just showing you another example, and you'll be seeing more and more of them where, okay, so this one's talking about a very narrow right turn lane. And, you know, a lot of you will be very sympathetic to the designers and the project managers in the sense that you go, well, they've got a constrained cross section. How they, you know, they've got to distribute what they've got. But, you know, we can be a little bit sympathetic, but our role is to highlight it and not be the project manager or the designer. We highlight it and you know, we look for ways together to try and reduce that risk. So you can see there, that's the issue they're talking about there, and what's the severity of crash on it. Well, you would be looking back to these sorts of figures that we have and thinking about the different crash types and which one is most relevant, and then, you know, putting safe system energy levels within tolerable levels, and then coming up with recommendations again, and then putting, you know, supporting recommendations. Now you note here, this one only has supporting recommendations. You do not need to make a primary recommendation. You can just have supporting ones. Likewise, you could have multiple primary recommendations. So have a look at that safe system assessment framework. And when you get to the exercise in a couple of modules time, you'll get some practice, you know, is that supporting, is that primary? And so that should help you along through it. So, you know, this one is sort of a classic where you're starting to really try to say, okay, the blue at the bottom, and you've got to be able to start to read these types of designs or be in audit teams where people can explain it to you and you can visualize it. But, you know, the blue underneath and the green on top is what they're building, with the black is the civil works, and you can see there's some signalization, putting jummers or joomers, depending on how you pronounce it. I'll give a prize to the person who can tell me what that stands for. I'm sure some of you are in that space. Little prize for that. And so it can be quite a technical task because you're trying to imagine this and visualize it and understand how people are going to queue there, and what's going to go on, and say, I'll take a 2.9 is pretty narrow, 3 is still pretty narrow. That's all going to be very tight. So Dan is almost there. Joint use mast, something. I'm going to give the prize to Dan, I think. Close enough. Joint use mast arm. It's where you use it's got a traffic signal and you continue it up, and it has a light as well. Joint use mast arm. So here's sort of poor wording of that. Right turn bay is too narrow. Okay. We haven't told us which right turn bay, and there's no, that's just, it's really not helping. I mean, you sort of found something, but you haven't explained it well, and nobody's quite clear there. Let's see what's fair. Okay. So at least now we know from main road to side road, or, you know, whatever the road names would be, and there's a crash type there. It increases the potential for side swipe or rear end crash types, and saying Austroad's Sky Road design states that lane with minimum should be 3.3. Okay, so we're getting some better information, but this is kind of like what we're looking for. Immediately, I'm happy because I've seen the snip and there's an arrow there, and I know exactly where we're talking about and what's going on there. And then you can see we've broken it up again into our formula. Main road to side road is too narrow. Concerning vehicle encroaching the same direction lane. either performing the turn maneuver or waiting the bay, especially if more than one vehicle is there. This is potential, therefore, for the sideswipe or rear end crash, particularly under wet weather conditions or at night. And then the Austroads guidance stuff. So issue, crash, risk factors, standards and guidelines, if applicable. The formula, the recipe is come out again. Okay. How long have we got? Okay. We're doing well. So road safety audit. There's a whole lot of things that a road safety audit is not. Not that check of compliance against standards. I think you're all pretty much onto that now. You're not assessing the overall merits of a project. It's not a way to justify one project over another or weigh them up against each other. It's not that substitute for the QA process, not a crash investigations. And you can see there quite a list of things that it's not. I'm just looking to see if I want to highlight any other. It's not a workplace health and safety check either. I mean, those are audited in their own ways or reviewed in their own ways. And when we get to traffic management plans, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's far more than checking for compliance with the code of practice or the like. So what we often say is that a road safety auditor is a problem finder. Solving the problem is added benefit, and it's not the auditor's primary role. Because you would have remembered back when I gave the example of the dynamic visual obstruction crash and went through, and you saw the audit recommendation was, consider a roundabout, but if you can't do that, here are some options for opening up site. The primary purpose of auditing is to find that issue. Resolving the issue is the project manager and designer, and that's their challenge. If we provide advice and recommendations, that is added bonus for them. Now, industry practice is to provide those recommendations and try to assist, but it is their sort of choice. But one thing I find with auditors, especially new auditors, and especially if they are technical people, often are the worst at this or the best at this, the identification of an issue and the solving of it happen instantaneously. And so what we find is that these new auditors will say the intersection should be a roundabout. You're like, whoa, tell us the problem and articulate it very clearly. Then we'll look at ways that could be solved. So you've really got to draw that thinking out for actually articulating the problem. Because we know we can solve problems in multiple ways, and there will be other constraints and challenges. And we do have these other techniques. So we have, other assessment techniques or independent looks and checks and QAs and the like that happen. So design reviews, or whatever you term them, which is where another designer will look at your roundabout design and do the calculation, check your calculations and check everything, they're happy with everything. Well, there's a bit of overlap there, but there's certainly other stuff that's done in design reviews, and there's other stuff that's done in road safety audits. Certainly safe system assessments, a newer concept, do some overlapping stuff. There's still stuff that sits outside of all this. This isn't the scale. We have safety in design, which is checking, can something be constructed safely? Can it be decommissioned safely? Can it be operated safely, maintained safely? And then we have DDA, or Disability Discrimination Act audits, or that independent check, can something be used by all road users safely? So there are lots of things out there, and they're all playing slightly different roles. There's bits of overlap, but I just thought I'd pop that in for context.
A comment's just come in, Ken, from Marlon, just saying that therefore problems/findings will depend on the skills and experience of the auditor.
Yes. So you'll see later down the track in module next module and module 5, I'll talk about what comprises a road safety audit team. And it has to, you have to have a senior auditor in a road safety audit team. You can supplement with other auditors, but it is still fairly heavily, it requires experience in auditing and identifying risk and the like. Certainly there's some good pathways for mentoring and getting an idea of these different issues. But yeah, they are dependent on the skills and experience of the audit team. So we do audit in teams usually. So you will be able to partner up with others and gain more experience. Thank you, Emma. So what can be audited? Well, anything that interfaces with a road or road-related area. Big projects, small projects, rural construction sites, roadwork, innovation, existing roads, shared paths, anything that interacts with a road. And here's an interesting example for you. So this road here, this intersection, the project was to upgrade, seal, formalize this gravel road. There's some improvements to the intersection. And there it is when they built it. Now, the council, the local council here said, well, we're spending lots of money, we're upgrading this, and we're making everything better. It's going to be safer, go in and out, formalizing the intersection, that's all going to be good. We don't need to do audit, we're just improving things here. So they decided no audits would be done. And it was built like that. And here's some pictures of it. Don't worry about the burnout marks. So you can see their new curbing, beautiful new curbing. That's the old road up there. And, here's from the old road, and that's the new section. So without knowing too much about this, I'll tell you now, the crashes after they went from the unsealed to the sealed, formalized road, the crashes significantly went up. Had serious injuries and deaths occurring over the years just after the upgrade. Why do you think that might have been the case? Anybody? Just pop something into the chat if you think you might have an idea of why that might be the case. I'll give it a second. I'll see what people want to pop in there. Good. So I'm seeing quite a number of you now coming through with this idea again of a see-through effect. And I won't, it's a bit hard to tell who was sort of first on to that specific one. But when the intersection was like this, and I think that the few people who were getting in first have already got a prize for today's session. But when the intersection was like this, a driver approaching from this way very clearly saw a different road. It was quite clear that there was an intersection here as big change. When it went to like this, it was a direct sort of see-through effect, straight, and the road continued on. So it looks like this. This used to be a gravel, and it was quite almost like a bit of a visual clue of a T intersection. But as soon as that went with the sealing, the overshoot crashes increased. Now, there were some other ideas that came in there, and those were all really good ways and things that should be thought about: the line marking, the signage, the sight lines, the turn lanes. These are all factors at play. But again, it's this change to create that way that road users are going to perceive the road environment, that we really got to be trying to get ourselves in those shoes. So what could have been suggested by the auditors? How long ago? You know, any ideas on what could have been suggested by the auditors? Pop a few ideas into the chat. I'm enjoying the interaction here. So, you know, great. Okay, so we're seeing traffic islands, so splitter islands, different traffic islands, roundabout as a possibility, warning signs, lights, lots of people liking the roundabout. And these are good. And I prefer to put in a few of those far-reaching recommendations like a roundabout, even though, you know, they may not be able to afford it at this stage, but it starts the ball thinking. And unfortunately, at this site, there's sort of 15 years worth of death and serious injury before eventually a roundabout did go in. But certainly some splitter islands would have significantly helped. They're a great clue. I agree, signs, lightings. Yeah, rumble strips on the approach can work as well. Staggered T intersections, a good idea. So you just simply stagger that a bit, and so you're facing the hazard board there, and it doesn't look like a straight see-through, and then you can make your turns. So lots of different options out there, and you can put a few of those ideas. But the key would have been that somebody identified and said, hang on, when you take this unsealed road and you seal it, and actually there's some good ideas in there as well about increasing speed on the unsealed road. So well done to the people who are saying that, because yeah, that's another thing you often go, well, actually now it's going to be higher speed and we're going to have all sorts of issues like that. But, you know, identifying that you're going to potentially create a see-through effect, enhance the see-through effect. You're going to have higher speed vehicles coming this way. You're going to maybe increase traffic. These are all things to try to predict and to try to suggest ways that we might be able to lessen the risk of those. So what I want to do in the last sort of 5 minutes before we get into allocating you a little task is just to talk to you briefly about these types of road safety audits. Now, I've sort of mentioned some of these already, but we can do a road safety audit at different stages within a road's life cycle or a project. So we've got before construction happens, we've got during construction or just as it's about to open, and then after construction. And we term these a feasibility audit, a preliminary design audit, a detailed design audit, construction site audit, a pre-opening, post-opening, or an existing road safety audit. And then we have these other ones, which we call thematic audits, but that's a motorcycle safety audit, a cycling audit, a pedestrian audit, where you're getting into the shoes of a particular road user. So the feasibility audit, I often call it like the planning stage audit, but it's a very sort of strategic level, high level look, feasibility designs. You know, you might be saying, well, how's this population going to get down here now? Where are they going to have to go? And are these the right, you know, is that interchange configuration going to have any potential issues? We know there's a huge amount of trucks that come down this way to go that way. Is that all? So your big picture thinking and trying to link that back to safety. You might get a bit more meat on the bone, but, you know, really you're thinking about intersection controls, movement of traffic, access, and those sorts of things. In the preliminary concept design stage, so preliminary concept, you've got a bit more meat on the bone. Maybe you get a survey base, maybe it's on an aerial base, but you're starting to see a bit more detail. Then you get into the detailed design audits, and this is where you get the work. So you get the long sections, the cross sections, the pavement plans, the signs, the lines, the drainage, the signal phasing. You get everything, and you've got to pour through all of that and try and imagine it all built and working, and the signals phasing certain ways, and then imagine challenges people are going to have with that. And you can have hundreds and hundreds of pages of designs to be pouring through when you're auditing at detailed design stage. And you'll be detailed design level, you'll be looking at, okay, they've proposed drivable culvert end walls on the culverts, and have they proposed type 1 or type 2? And you're into that level of detail trying to pick that off the plan, because we've got certain type of drivable culvert end wall that are used for longitudinal culverts, and some for the perpendicular culverts. And you've got to make sure you get the right drivable culvert end wall. Obviously, you want something better than no drivable culvert end wall, but can you get the right one? Of course, there's a little snippet there if you're interested in that level of detail. So there you go. It's the type 1 is the parallel one, and the type 2 is the perpendicular one. It is a common road safety audit finding. We find in a lot of design audits is that the designer may only know that of one type of drivable culvert end wall, which is the parallel one, the type 1. And so then if the culvert's going across the road, then they pick a one. It's really not going to work that well. It's not what it's designed for. But, random there, detailed design sort of pickup thing that you might notice. Construction site road safety audits. Well, you're going to be looking at the plans. You're going to be looking at the surrounding area, access, any detour routes. Is it going to put in harm's way? Is the queuing going to be an issue? How do people access different areas? It's far more than just, have they got the correct sign at the correct spacing? Okay. Yeah, you'll have a look at that too, but it's far bigger and well beyond just that. Pre-opening is really checking, well, have they got the right colored RRPMs? Have they got the overlap of the barriers right? Is it the right height? Are the delineators right? Guideposts the right way around? The line marking correct? You're into the fine details now. You're doing that independent check before they cut open the ribbon. And a quick one. Here's one which we go talk of post-opening, just been opened. You're sent through to check, is everything right? Anybody see the issue? Is there an issue? Maybe there's no issue. Any eagle eyes on this? I'll give it a second to see. Emma will shortly, give out the assignment. I think, yep, Chris has got in there just first. So somebody in this lane going straight ahead and somebody this lane turning right with forcing a conflict. So obviously the line marker's got their stencil the wrong way around on that one. But that sort of stuff is out there. And as an auditor, we've got to be trying to pick that up before the road is opened, ideally, or straight away in that. I don't believe that the designer would have got that wrong. I think it was just an implementation issue. Hopefully the surveillance officer would have picked that up. And existing conditions audits, which is, looking at what's currently there and are there any issues. I won't talk more about the picture. I'll talk about that later. Thematic audits, cyclists, pedestrian, motorcyclist, getting in the shoes of that road user, looking from their particular perspective for road safety issues. We go through each of these road users in detail in some later modules. Okay, I think there was one question around, do you need to do a site visit for a feasibility audit? In general, yes, but the latest version of Part 6 has relaxed it just for that particular one, because there's a lot of people who are standing in a paddock, in the dark, wondering why they're there just because they're ticking a box of a requirement for a site visit when it didn't quite make sense. So it was relaxed just on that phase of auditing. I'll talk a bit more about that later. Okay, this week, because there are so many topics out there, so many topics in road safety engineering and what you pick up in road safety auditing, we can't possibly cover them in in the content that I'm going through. I'm picking random ones here and there that I, see a bit. But what we want you to do is get one topic that we're going to randomly assign to you and do a little bit of research on it, get your head around it, and then create something that we can share with everybody that explains the issue or the road safety intervention and links it back to sort of road safety and road safety audit. And so you will get some topic, and it could be, I don't know, it could be road safety barriers in relation to curbing. And so you go, oh, okay. And then you would do a bit of Googling on that, find some information. Okay, there's different curb types. There's mountable curbing, semi-mountable, barrier curbing. Oh, okay, and barriers, and there's certain, distances we can have barriers close to curbs and different curb types. And you gather that little bit of information, and then you would create something. It could be a short video, it could be a fact sheet, it could be a cartoon, it could be any way you want to present a little bit of that info and pop it in there, and you'll upload it to Moodle. Now, if you're doing a video or something, we don't want like a 2-hour extraordinaire. We just want a short 1-minute video. Feel free to do whatever you want. Do a TikTok, do an interpretive dance for all we care. If you can get some information across in that way, we'll be pretty happy. We will give a prize for the most creative, for the most technically sound, and for the most engaging. And we'll give those out a little bit later on. So at this stage, I think I'm about to hand over to Emma. There's a list of all the random topics. Emma's got a wonderful little tool which will randomly assign that to you, and she will show you in Moodle where you can find this and how to do where your quiz is. So over to you, Emma.
Thanks, Ken. Okay. All right. Share the topic generator. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep. No worries.
Exciting.
So,
the super topic, random topic generator. Let's go.
It's not clicked on.
Okay. Generating topics.
I'm not looking at it. I'm just going to stop.
Okay.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah, we've got to make sure we get a note of that. We'll email this out, or we'll put it at least in Moodle, but we'll make sure everybody's got it. But you might be able to see what you've got there already.
Yeah.
Lots of exciting ones. There you go, Daniel. Daniel, you actually got curbing your barriers, so
yeah, I'll absolutely email it to everybody. So don't panic. I'll send it after today's session, and then it'll also be in Moodle as well. But we'll make sure everyone knows what their topic is. So don't worry if you can't see it now or you didn't see it. So I will also now share. I will show you Moodle now.
Right. In the last 3 minutes, a quick show of where people can find. Oh, good. There you go.
Okay, great. So this is Moodle. So once you've logged in, so if you are having any troubles logging in or with your finding your details or anything like that, certainly shoot me an email and I'll send them out to you again. So you'll find everything for today's session under module 1. So you've got all the resources and things like that, and where you had your introduction over the last few days, but under module 1 is where you'll find everything for today. So there's a number of videos, additional videos, slides, the PowerPoints, Ken's PowerPoints are there, a quiz that you'll need to complete as well, which will also include the question of how many wallies that you've seen throughout the session. And then the research topic will be here. So if you just click on this there, it gives you all the instructions of what you need to do. There's also a video. We've got an example. Here's one we prepared earlier. One of our engineers has created a video on one of the research topics, which is under the video section, which I was just showing you. So you just need to, I'm looking from, so you'll see this. I have an admin view too, which is showing me that. So it will have your submission status. So you'll just select add your submission, and you'll be able to drop in your document or your video or anything, your creation, your video of your interpretive dance, all of that sort of thing. You'll just be able to drop in there, and then you'll just click save changes, and that will all save. Hopefully, if you have any trouble, certainly just shoot me an email or give me a call, and I can talk you through it, or troubleshoot the issues that we may have. Now, this assignment is due on Friday by 5 o'clock this coming Friday. So you've only got a few days to get it done. So get onto it early. Also, if you have missed any of today's session or anything like that, under module 1, so it's just gone back to I need to just switch roles back to, sorry.
While you're doing that, I'll just say that don't spend hours and hours on this assignment. We really just want you to just have a look into a topic, present something together, have a bit of fun with it. You know, we're not very strict markers on this one. When we get into the actual auditing is where we start to be a bit stricter on marking, but it's just to get you to investigate a topic and put something fun together.
Yeah, no worries. Also, today's session has been recorded. Or is being recorded, and that will also be available under module 1 as well if you want to go back and refresh or recap on anything that you'd like to go over again.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
Jen.
See you later on.
See you Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.